This will be the initial reading of my 94 plus K word full-length novel Backwoods as part of the Monster Saga. This first installment of, let's call it Backwoods Monsters, will consist of a brief introduction, a list of characters, and the initial settings to the beginning acts of this full-length novel. Alright, a brief introduction. This full-length novel has been written in the format of a screenplay, and it has been formatted in this way for several different reasons. During the formation of this story, I quickly realized that this would be a very dialogue-based yarn, which I like because I get to put a lot of emphasis on how the dialogue comes across, further shaping and defining the different characters' personalities. There aren't a whole lot of characters in this story, by the way, nor settings, most of the story taking place on a farm in rugged and mountainous western New World. So yes, I got to thinking about the screenplay idea, not too seriously at first, but I came to realize that this is a story which could make for a potentially very low-budget movie. The settings, cast, and even dialogue all seem like they would just work for and even benefit from such a formatting choice, and it's something I haven't done yet. I've never attempted to write a screenplay, so I figured that doing so would make for an interesting project for the undertaking. Well, you know how it goes. When the stars seem to align and all the right cards seem to be coming one's way, well, you just sort of gotta roll with it and go with it, and hey, why not meet a new challenge head on? So that's what I did. With the overall story and vision, the plot points in a reasonable semblance of an order, and even a number of early draft concepts and handwrits to a number of the big events finished and there to pick through and work from, the preparation phase was approaching its conclusion. Before committing and going into the actual initial typing phase of this story, however, I spent some time looking into how others do their screenplays and started thinking about how to truly go about doing this story as such a project. I soon got the idea in my head that I should not only portray this story in a screenplay format, but that I should also pitch it to you, the reader, as if you were a potential director or member of a film crew looking to make this manuscript into a movie. To create this effect, for the foremost sections of this manuscript, I've included a bit of a synopsis, which includes this introduction as well as notes on characters, locations, act and scene structuring, and anything else of immediate importance. I've also included some additional outside of story details in the form of author's notes, which will occasionally fall in between the acts. I hope and intend for this synopsis to help only to entice a reader, Mr. or Mrs. Director, and fellow film crew members to imagine the characters and their different personality traits, as well as the locations and their different descriptive sceneries, that much more vividly and clearly in one's own mind, making them that much more lifelike. I would like for you to picture everything that happens within this manuscript as if it were happening on a screen or a stage within your own mind. I hope that in the end, the experience pulls you in and captivates you in a way to where you end up seeing even more than what words alone can describe. The imagination is a powerful tool, and so is exploration. Now, I gotta say, I'm not a cameraman, being so, though I will make suggestions when something comes into my imagination and strikes my fancy. I've, for the most part, foregone suggesting camera shots and angles and things of that such. For example, I do understand that I've seen a screenplay to where CU might mean close up shot, or ECU might mean extreme close up shot. Those two I remember correctly. But anyway, I've seen it done this way, but I'm just not using that style of formatting for this screenplay. Really, I just have to do this how I know and feel is best for this story of mine and what I have planned for it. Please just know that if it is important to me how something is portrayed, then it will show up in the script's descriptives. And even so, you're the reader, so in this case, you're also the director. So if you want to imagine anything differently and think about how you would do or say some part in some different way, or anything like that, I mean, go for it. Let your imagination run wild with this one. I mean, it's a fictional story. It's meant to be fun. Um, I want it to be fun for you. I mean, and then even with this, we're doing this on as YouTube videos to where I'm doing readings of these. So, um, yeah, there's a comment section. Feel free to just have fun with it. I know one thing, getting back to the manuscript now, I know one thing that I put a lot of emphasis on is character actions and mannerisms, as well as character interactions and how those are shaped. How each character behaves and comes off to the reader is of extreme importance to me. Real and lifelike is, of course, what I'm going for. That's the goal. But to make them all interesting as individuals with their own unique little quirks and ways of going about life, and that's a big part of it too. I do like to cover a wide array of events in my stories. I also like to set a fast pace, but with reasonable and deserved time allotted for each major plot point and event that I'm going for. There's a lot to this story, and please keep in mind this manuscript was written as a novel as well as a screenplay. Um, Due to the length of this manuscript, I of course felt a fast pace should be set whenever possible, as long as it didn't negatively impact the overall telling process and the chain of events which I was going for, which make for this tale, which makes this story um, just as lifelike as I felt I could make it, as true to my visions as I could make it happen. But this is also supposed to be a detailed scenic adventure, at least for the first few acts. And once the Lasbies make it to their destination, well, this one also begins to escalate day by day, and events add up. What will start as a vacation will soon turn into a rather inconvenient and untimely predicament, one which will unravel into what could be described as a living nightmare for the Lasbies, and quite the dire predicament, and not just for Martin and Paulette Lasby either, but we'll get to that. When it comes to selecting the story that I plan to write next, first and foremost, for me to tell the tale, it really has to call to me and say, hey, I'm it, buddy. I'm the next one on the list. I'm the story you are due up to work on. And in order to be that next story, it not only has to be the best in mind and work for what I'm going for, I also have to be able to see it in full, which takes time and planning and dreaming it up and imagining it and working out all of those details and plot points into an order which ties everything together, makes for interesting, and makes for an impact. But that's all just a part of the process. It should be noted that I do enjoy delving into and exploring some fairly controversial topics and issues at times. And well, this story is one of them. Let me just say right now that, in my opinion, it is hard to properly, descriptively portray a bad case of hoarding using just words alone. However, as a writer, that just makes for another interesting challenge and makes for enough of a reason to try. So prepare to vacation with Martin and Paulette Lasby and enter the home of Byron and Malin Wade, who collect things. And remember, this is just make-believe, but the make-believe is so often just a reflection of some distorted underlying reality. This is essentially a story about hoarders, but some hoarders with some very extreme predilections. They're not average. Again, they collect things. Enjoy. Alright, quotes. We collect things. And our quote for this story is a line spoken by a Packled, a race of lethargic humanoids from an episode of Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek, TNG, entitled Samaritan Snare. Very good episode. I like it a lot. And again, we collect things. They talk a bit like Byron's going to talk. But Packled's in that episode. I didn't do it right the first time, so I had to give it one more shot. Alright, cast of characters. Please note that this portion of our introduction is essentially just a brief and basic synopsis of each of this story's characters. An actor might use this information to gain a most basic understanding of a role. Piecing together a character's mindset, mannerisms, and personality is something which would come much later on, I am sure. This descriptive simply introduces the cast and provides a basic outline of each character. Alright, let's begin. 1 and 2, we have Martin and Paulette Lasby. These are going to be our main characters. They will be our protagonists. They are a typical married couple who are about to leave the big city in order to head out to the mountainous west on an adventurous, outdoorsy vacation. Alright, Martin and Paulette's characters will be further expounded upon in Backwoods prior to Act 1. Alright, the old saying, all good things come in time, comes to mind here. 3 and 4, Byron and Malin Wade. These are also going to be main characters. These characters will play more of an antagonistic role, so they will be, for the most part, our main antagonists. They are a married couple who are going to provide Martin and Paulette shelter during their vacation. Byron Wade is short, round, plump, and heavy set. He is a bit goofy and even simple looking, and his appearance is by no means tidy and clean, but he is very strong and quite capable. Byron has green eyes and very little hair. He's not quite bald, but his hairline has receded far to the back of his head and down each side. The little bit of hair that he has left is a sun-streaked auburn brown color that's beginning to fade to gray. He occasionally scratches at his ears like a dog, but with his hand rather than a paw, and he wears an odd, goofy grin on his face throughout most of the day. Byron's wife, Malin Wade, is a short, round, plump, and heavy-set woman. Byron is short, perhaps 5'9", and Malin is nearly a half a foot shorter than Byron, putting her at about 5'3" or 5'4". Malin has hazel eyes and shoulder-length burgundy red hair that looks like it's been dyed that color. Her hair also has a bit of a natural perm to it. Her age-worn and battered face portrays a permanent frown. Despite how old Malin looks, she does have an infant child. Unlike Byron, who is always fidgeting with something and doing his best to maintain the farm, Malin is a bit lazier. Malin's favorite pastime consists of going through and rearranging, but not throwing away, the piles and boxes of possessions and junk strewn throughout the home and the property. Malin also yells at the kids a lot, which Byron is also guilty of too. It should be noted, perhaps as a warning of what's to come, that Byron says and does some creepy and inappropriate things at times, but Malin is usually quick to butt in and scold him anytime she hears him say anything too improper around their guests. These people aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, but Malin is definitely the brains behind the bunch. 5 through 10. Byron and Malin Wade have 6 children living with them. 5. Slave, the oldest, perhaps 13 years of age. He is disfigured and mentally handicapped. He doesn't talk, but he can work. 6. Spaz, perhaps 10 years of age, very hyperactive, and the boy takes after his father. 7. Dodie, the oldest girl, who is very shy and does not talk much, and is apparently a year younger than Spaz. 8. Boz, 6 years old and the more laid back of the 2 more active and capable young boys. Peg, a 5-year-old little girl and an absolute sweetheart. 10. Baby, the infant baby, who the Wades simply call Baby, though Spaz and Boz may play the biggest roles when it comes to the children in this story. All of these children make for the main supporting cast members in this story. 11. Joey Lasby, Martin and Paulette's deceased son. He's going to be a supporting cast member. He appears only in dream sequences. He was born with health issues, and the Lasbys lost him when he was still an infant. The effect the event has had on the pair has been a bit of an ongoing and traumatic ordeal, and things haven't been easy, that's for sure. But a little time has passed now, and they've been doing their best to cope and hold on to their marriage. 12. Grandpa Talbot. Grandpa Talbot's going to play a ghost character-styled role. He's only really ever mentioned, or he shows up on the other end of a one-sided phone call where we only hear what Paulette is saying. He never actually makes an appearance, but is nevertheless an important and influential character in this story. It's just that there's really no casting needed for this particular role. It's more of a concept character or a construct character or whatever have you. Alright, 13 and 14. G and Peppy. Alright, G and Peppy are going to be the Wade family's small mongrel dogs. G is a spotted terrier breed, mostly white with black specks, and a black nose, black ears, and a black tipped tail. Peppy is the same breed, but black with a white patch on his neck and chest area. Peppy likes to roll around in stinky things, like, well, you know. So the Wades name him after the skunk from the Looney Tunes cartoons. And, well, the dogs will play supporting cast members. I mean, hey, animals do count as actors. They are the cast. Alright, enough of my fun. Number 15 is AJ. AJ is going to be Byron Wade's friend at AJ's auto repair shop and salvage yard. He is a supporting cast member, a rather tertiary character. Alright, next three characters are going to be dream sequence characters. We start with number 16, the Doctor. He's just a dream sequence doctor. He plays a tertiary role as a character in one of the dream sequences. There's also going to be dream scene paramedics, number 17. There are a few of them, but only one does all the talking, so there's one main tertiary character right there. The rest kind of act as extras. Up next, we have a dream sequence psychologist. We're calling him Shrink. And he is a tertiary character who simply shows up in one of the dream sequences. Sheriff Sid, the man behind the desk who runs the town of Woolridge. He is a supporting cast member and a tertiary character again. But yep, that puts us at 19. 19 in all. Alright, our main settings / locations. Please note that though often thorough, this descriptive will cover main settings only. Main settings will provide more of a broad-based descriptive for some, but not all, of the settings in this story. As you will soon come to see, main settings will be marked with a letter in bold and applied in each act to each consecutively numbered scene after that scene's introductory descriptive. But only if the scene, or rather the setting for that scene / location, seems to require a more thorough descriptive and therefore such a letter. Again, just to simplify it into a single sentence, the bold numbers will keep track of each time the novel changes from one... the bold numbers will keep track of each time the novel changes from one scene to the next, while the bold letters at the end of the scene's initial descriptive will keep track of what would be the main set location's descriptives. One more time. Again, just to simplify it into a single sentence, the bold numbers will keep track of each time the novel changes from one scene to the next, while the bold letters at the end of the scene's initial descriptive will keep track of what would be the main set location's descriptive. All right. There's one correction I need to make here. Now, to begin with, I write all of my stories out of a fictional parody of this planet, which I've simply dubbed the world. And just 'cause this story isn't a crossovers anthology-based yarn, that doesn't make it any different. Like Earth, the world has, I should say, continents and oceans, but it is much smaller and simpler than our own planet. There are only two main continents and two main nations in the world, New World and Old World. Though fictional, New World is enough like America for one to be able to use America as a reference point for at least the scenery in this storyline. The mountain range out west being perhaps a lot like some location in the Rocky Mountains. This story takes place in one of those late spring, early summer, hot but not too hot months, whenever it's a bit nicer outside but no cold and snow. The story begins in a city in eastern New World, or rather a suburban town known as Trinity, which is located right on the outskirts of New World's capital city of Atlantis. However, the East is quickly abandoned, and the majority of this storyline will take place out amongst the vast wilderness and rugged forested mountains of West New World. Imagine the Rocky Mountains. Imagine a patch of mountains cutting through a sparse forest. And amidst all that, a little dirt road which leads, well, actually it's a long dirt road, which leads up to a dilapidated farm. But this will be described further in part E of this descriptive. We're going to start with A. And well, here it is. A. Interior. Martin and Paulette Lasby's two-story house in the suburbs of southeastern New World. Alabaster walls, light brown carpeted floors, white tile for the kitchen and bathroom. As one enters through the front door into the home's lobby area and main hallway to begin with, all on the first floor and off to the left side, there's a little office room followed by a bathroom and a supplies and appliances closet, all with wood doors. The hallway empties out into the living room, with the dining room and the kitchen on the right-hand side, the former in the back of the home and the latter up front. The kitchen can also be accessed by making a right and entering from the front hallway. There is no door to the kitchen, just an open expanse in the wall to enter through. The home's lobby, main hallway, living room, kitchen, and dining room are all somewhat interconnected, which should make for an ability to see the characters more easily and clearly from a wider array of perspectives while they're moving around on that first floor of the home in the beginning of this story, when the Lasbys are finishing up their packing of their station wagon and getting ready for their vacation to head out the door to leave on this latest adventure of theirs. There's an expanse in the wall to pass through, connecting the kitchen and the dining room, as well as an open bar creating a sort of indoor window in between the two. There's no wall whatsoever connecting the dining room with the living room, though the living room is a bit bigger than the dining room due to the impressive size of the kitchen and the way the rooms are situated. The staircase leading up to the second floor is also at the far end of the living room, making its way up one far side wall of the home. The kitchen and dining room both have windows looking outside, and the living room has a sliding glass door which opens up to the Lasby's fenced-in backyard. There's a screened-in patio area with a pool and some exercise equipment out back, as well as a beautiful backyard with a couple of big trees growing up in towering toward the sky, providing shade for the home. Looking out at the backyard through a window, flower beds and shrubs can also be seen lining the wood fence surrounding the backyard. There's no period there. It needs to be. Alright, the furniture in the house is pretty much standard for what you would find in a house of this size, and the Lasbys are good about keeping their home nice, neat, tidy, and clean. There is adequate closet space in both of the bedrooms' closets, as well as an attic to store all of the Lasbys' gear for their vacations and adventures. The 2 bedrooms, as well as another bathroom, are upstairs, but we'll be spending our limited amount of time here at this location with the couple downstairs, as well as out in the front yard of the home. And, well, that will be B. Exterior. Out in front of Martin and Paulette Lasby's beige and brown 2-story house. We can see that the second floor of the house sits to the back, a bit upon the first floor apparently making for the majority of the home's square footage and living space. The lawn is a beautifully vibrant and bright colored green. There's a couple of robust trees growing in the front yard, but away from the home, as not to incur any structural damage to the house and its foundation from the trees' root systems. Both massive trees are surrounded by circular beds of pretty flowering plants, helping to add that picturesque quality and look to the overall landscaping. Facing the home from the street, we walk up a cement driveway. A station wagon occupies the driveway's right side. We walk by the station wagon toward a 2-car garage, and we hang a left prior to walking into the closed garage door. We've now come to a small foyer area with its walkway leading up to the front door. A patch of shrubbery lines an area between the walkway and the home. A small fountain sits off to the right of a wide window which, as it appears, would make for a nice view of the front yard as well as much of the street and immediate neighborhood. This is the kitchen window. There's lots of green foliage growing all around in this little shrubbery section. More plants and shrubbery line the front of the home and can be seen lining the sides of the home as well, stretching back to a brown wood fence, which would make for the Lasby's backyard. We make our way up the walkway and swing a right to step up to the front door. The front door is surrounded by stained glass windows. There's also a slightly narrower window in the wall to the left of the front door and foyer area. This is where the little office room is located. 2 windows can be seen on the top floor. The bathroom windows are apparently on a different side of the house, likely off to the home's left side. Now we get to see interior. This is going to be the Lasby station wagon's interior. The vehicle isn't messy, but it isn't spotless either. The car is rugged and old, but that's obviously because it's been used for many fun adventures in the past. Very sporty inside, with all the Lasby's gear packed and showing. All that gear takes up a lot of space. Otherwise, the Lasby station wagon is a rather spacious vehicle. Perhaps something like the tent gear is even to be shown tied down to the top of the car. Straps hanging off and flapping over the sides to be seen out the windows as Martin and Paulette make their way out west. add in a pine leaf air freshener or some kind of adventurous gimmick hanging from the rearview mirror, and what could I possibly be forgetting? Oh yeah, we want traveling music. Yay. Alright, this is more or less being listed just for fun, but when I think of traveling music, I think of songs that have to do with driving and traveling. Songs like Chuck Berry's No Particular Place to Go, or the Beach Boys' I Get Around, or Foghat's Slow Ride, or Tom Petty's Running Down a Dream, or the Allman Brothers' Ramblin' Man, or Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild, or Led Zeppelin's The Immigrant Song, or even War's Lowrider, or Ministry's Jesus Built My Hot Rod. Okay, I doubt the Lasbies would make that last song one of their selections, so that one is probably out. And it might be something more up the Wade's alley. D. This is going to be our last one for today. This is going to be this is going to be an interior shot from inside the motel room the Lasbies will be staying at the first, night or two of their adventure out west. And, it just needs to be stated that the hotel that the Lasbies are going to be staying at is by no means a fancy one. It's not extravagant, but rather just a cheap room with a bed and the standard amenities and furnishings. The Lasbies plan to spend most of their time on the move, not in a room, so they've decided to start off their vacation by keeping it simple and playing it safe with their vacation funds. That's it. We'll discuss the room more when we get to it. Moving on, we get to E, and we will discuss E, an exterior shot, in the next video, in the next installment, the second installment. Alright, and we'll do the second installment soon. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed. Alrighty.